So feel free to get up and get more pizza, whatever you need. I have a few things that I want to share with you, a few announcements and updates, but also, as it's said in the advertising, this is an opportunity for you to ask me anything, and we can have a conversation about whatever you want to talk about. But just to jump in and share a few updates first, I'm going to share a couple things, and then we'll come to the audience participation portion of the day, and then I've got a few more announcements that I can share if we don't get to those in your questions. But first thing I wanted to do is just share with you that we have had some changes on the academic side. We've seen these in email announcements, but just to make sure that you all understand who sort of your leadership is. So Julie Taggart is an alumna of CCAD, and then went out to Syracuse to get her master's degree, and then came back to CCAD and started teaching here in the fine arts program. He moved up into the administration, was dean of the School of Studio Arts for many years, and now, as of January, is the provost here at CCAD. So we're really excited to have Julie in that role. How many of you would like to know what a provost is? All right, good, don't be shy. So a provost is essentially the vice president for academic affairs. So the provost at CCAD oversees not only academic affairs, but also student affairs and sort of all of that whole realm. So you've got Athena Sanders, our Dean of Students, who is our Chief Student Affairs Officer. So she works with Julie on all of the kind of co-curricular and extracurricular, residential life, counseling and wellness, all of that sort of part of things. And there she is, Julie Taggart, our provost. And Julie then also oversees all the academic stuff, so the curriculum, the faculty. So that's what a provost does. So we're really excited to have Julie in that new role. And Tom Gaddis, who also has been at CCAD for a number of years. Tom had been the dean of the School of Design, and now he's the dean of undergraduate studies. So Julie is the provost, Tom is kind of overseeing all the undergraduate programs, and Jen Schlieder, who joined us in August, is overseeing the graduate areas. So you've got that kind of structure over the academic side of the house. So a couple other just quick kind of announcements about our two programs. One is that we have been working on launching a new program that is still scheduled to start in fall of 2020, so this coming fall, and that is a major in game art and design. So we have been offering a number of game classes through our animation program for a few years, but we've seen the interest specifically in game art and design continue to grow, and so we are building out a new major, a BFA in game art and design. So we're really excited about that. We're going through all the processes right now, recruiting new students for it, but also making sure our accreditation agencies, those external agencies who we have to check in with about what we're delivering, making sure that it's up to snuff and in line with what we should be doing. We're doing that work right now. So that's on target to start in the fall, and we're really excited about that. If you're interested in game art and design, there will be classes you can take, of course, and potentially you could transfer into that major. It kind of depends on how far along you are and how long you want to stay here at CCAD. But if you're interested in that, definitely talk to your advisor, and they can kind of start talking to you about what the courses are that you'll be required to take for game art and design, and whether or not, what you're currently doing and whether that can transfer. And then finally, contemporary crafts. So we have had a long history of teaching craft disciplines within our fine arts program. We had an idea a few years ago to maybe sort of pull that out into a standalone major, but the truth is that it's a relatively small major, and we're finding that we're actually struggling to best deliver that content as a standalone major, because you have these separate classes that end up then not filling, and then you end up with challenges of, are we going to run the class or not run the class? So we're going to fold the contemporary crafts back into fine arts. This does not mean that that we are no longer delivering that content. We will still be teaching in those craft areas, still offering that critical curriculum, but it'll kind of get folded into fine arts. If you are currently in the contemporary crafts major, don't worry. You have a pathway to complete in that major, but we're not going to be bringing new students into that major. We'll be bringing them into fine arts if they're interested in those craft areas. So those are just a few updates on the academic side. Any questions about any of that before I move on to the next piece? Okay, all right, so, oh shoot, one more thing about academics, right. Almost moving on to the next piece. We do have a number of open faculty positions. Every year we are doing national searches for new full-time faculty, and these are just a few of the positions that we're currently searching for. It always depends on how many applicants we get and whether or not we get a strong enough pool. So we won't necessarily be filling all 4 of these positions for fall, but our goal is to do that and to, of course, be looking at the current spread of full-time faculty, growth in majors, where do we need to continue to grow. But these are the positions we're searching for right now. Okay, so this is the moment where you pull out your cell phone or your smart device of any kind. It doesn't have to be a phone, I guess. It could be your computer or your iPad or maybe even your Wacom tablet. I don't know. Do those get online? I should know that, right? No. Julie's shaking her head at me like, no, stop talking, art historian. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so go to www.menti.com. And you'll immediately get to a page where it will say, enter this code, and there's your code, 857004. And as soon as you do that, then you should come to a page where this question is on your device. And you can answer it. So we've called these things a number of different things, town halls, president's address, and we're just warming you up here. So just, audience feedback. What do you think these meetings should be called? The meetings where you and I sit down and chat. Just making sure everyone's got time to get their children in the corn, right? All right, these are good. Maybe we'll have a rotating every time. We'll just choose a different name, but it'll be one of your selections. So we will, just FYI, this sort of slide deck that you are all co-creating as we speak does get saved, and it'll be downloaded into a PDF, and so we won't lose this information. So these are important questions, but we're going to get to some even more important questions. And just so you know, it doesn't just go away when I hit the next button. We will actually be able to retain this and come back to it. TED Talks with Dr. Corn is a lot of stress because I hear people prepare a lot for TED Talks. So that one I'm a little nervous about. Unless someone else who's named TED in the community talks every time with me, that would be pretty awesome. All right, and now I gotta scroll down, which, this is not a Mac, and that is hard for me. I don't know how to do that. 2 fingers? No. Okay. Oh, wait, here, and then I just hit this. Ooh, okay, there we go. That was all we needed, right? Now you can see the bottom. Okay, all right, so let's go on to the next question. I am very adept with computers, just not PCs, so apologies. Okay, here we go. What's your favorite spot on campus? lab?
Great.
Oh, that sort of desk right when you walk in? Yeah. Aww, cute. Oh, I was good. A lot of love for our student affairs folks, our security team. Yeah, don't let anyone else into your favorite spot on campus. That's smart. So the second floor lounge area, Kinney, are the chairs back, or are they still gone? So someone took chairs out of it last semester and it made me sad. Are there chairs in the second floor lounge area, Kinney? Yes, there are chairs. So if there was a moment without chairs, and it used to be your favorite spot, go check it out again, because chairs are back. All right, great. All right, so now getting a little bit more serious. So what can we do better? What would be better? What would better? I'm going to say this right eventually. What would better help you thrive in your studies? So what can we do here at CCAD to help you thrive as a student? These are good. So as they're still coming in, what cafeteria hours are better suited for college students? Anyone willing to speak up and say when they would like the cafeteria to be open when it's not open?
Like 2 or 3?
In the morning?
No.
Okay. Hey, that's
No,
that, yeah. In the afternoon. Okay, got it.
Between
Got it.
clothing, there was just like a little bit of.
Got it. So you can't really get anything between lunch and dinner, and so yeah. Okay. Other thoughts on that? And what do you feel like you don't get in the supply store that you need? Mat board.
Big.
Really? Oh my god, I feel like we've got, don't we have this giant box off of mat board?
The large.
Ah, I see, okay, so
large.
it's not large enough, okay,
So the large.
got it. All right, large mat board. More studio time, less class time just for the sake of meeting an hour requirement. That would be great. We have challenges with accreditation. We have standards we have to meet through our accreditors, which include the fact that every studio class has to meet 2 hours per credit, and every liberal arts class has to meet 1 hour per credit. So that's one of the things that we run up against for sure, is how can we meet the needs and standards of our accreditors, but also make sure that we are making valuable use of that time and not just feeling like we're making you sit in your seat until the bell rings. So I think that's definitely something that we are working toward. So no morning classes before 9. no evening classes after 7. Are you guys willing to come on Friday and Saturday? Because that'll be the trade-off. So.
But after 9 a.m.
Okay, all right. Anyone want to expand on anything else they saw here? Yeah, Grace.
I personally feel like I have a lot of studio time, but that definitely came with becoming an upperclassman. So, like, right now, pretty much everything I'm doing in the studio is for my thesis, and I have a lot of freedom with my professors because they understand that that's what I'm working towards. So, I definitely understand, like, if you're a freshman or sophomore, there is more time where maybe you're sitting in the classroom, you're like, oh, I want to go to my studio for this last hour. But I will say that that definitely comes with, like, the longer you're in school. Because I've noticed that for me, that shift has happened pretty gradually, but it's been really good for me.
Yeah, so it's more of your sort of junior and senior level classes, while you may technically be in class, it's more self-directed, so you get that time in the studio. Yeah. Anyone else want to comment on anything on here?
I like to encourage more group projects to ask.
Yeah.
Because I think that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, encouraging more group projects across disciplines. We just did a big strategic planning session here at CCAD on Saturday, and some of you in the room were there, and one of the things that came out in one of the brainstorming sessions that I was in was this idea of, how can we do just that? How can we create more opportunities for collaboration across courses within the major and beyond, interdisciplinary classes? And some of it comes down to some of those challenges around, when classes are in session and how are we managing the calendar of when projects are due. But that's not to say it's not possible, but it's something that I think is really important, because I do feel like more and more when creatives are working out there in the world, regardless of your major, whether you identify as a designer or a fine artist, you're often working in very collaborative environments across disciplines. And so how can we do more of that in school to better prepare you for your life after college as well? All right, so let's move on to what this was billed as, which was an AMA with Dr. Corn, which I will not be shy to admit that I had no idea what that was, and I thought maybe I sounded a little bit like WWE wrestling for a minute, and I thought I'm gonna have to dress appropriately for, some AMA, I don't know. But no, it just means ask me anything. So this is your moment. You can ask me anything anonymously up here on the screen, and I will do my best to answer it. So what questions do you have for me? Hard work. I'll give just another minute while people are typing, then I'll start answering. All right, great question. So, first one, how can we address more sustainable practices around campus and as a part of the progressive Columbus community? I'm assuming with this question we're talking about environmental sustainability. So I'll answer it that way, but if that's not the question, interrupt and let me know what else. But I think this is really important, and I do feel like we're doing some things well here at CCAD, but we have a lot of room to grow in this area. I think that there are some specific things that are kind of unique to art and design colleges that we need to focus on, which is how our own practices, either contributing to environmental sustainability or challenging our efforts in environmental sustainability. So I think one of the things that I think we're doing some of this already, but I think areas where we can push even more are within the curriculum. Are we teaching sustainability in our various disciplines. So I know, for example, we talk about sustainable fashion, sort of zero waste fashion. What are the issues with cotton, for example, and the production of cotton and how much water that takes, et cetera. So is there more that we can do in that regard? What are we thinking, or how are we teaching students about, and what are we doing as an institution about the various sort of hazardous materials that we may be working with in our different disciplines, and managing waste disposal, working toward using less of those harmful chemicals. And then I think just as an institution, are we doing everything we can to make sure that we are creating as little waste as possible? So I know that our food service provider, Airmark, has been doing a lot of work around trying to do more composting, less food waste, making sure, for example, that we are using non-incandescent light bulbs. I know that may sound small, but it's a huge thing, especially when you have so many buildings with so many lights. So in fact, we had a donor who gave us money over a couple of years to start changing out all of our light bulbs in all of our buildings, so that we don't have as many incandescent light bulbs. So I'll move on, because I got a lot more questions here, and I'm going to keep talking about sustainability. But I think this is a huge opportunity for us to grow and improve what we do, and I think a lot of it comes from students, because students are often on the front lines of this work. So I guess I would throw this back out to you and say, not that we have to answer all this right now, but what do you think we should be doing? What are we not doing? And let's talk about those things, and how can we sort of pull more of that into both the curriculum and just the life of the college. Okay, does CCAD still require a portfolio for incoming students? Yes, absolutely. We definitely require a portfolio for all incoming students. That portfolio is one of the major pieces of what is assessed when we review students for admissions. I know that there was this rumor that came up about 5 years ago, kind of right before I was here, that we had this moment of questioning a portfolio. And I think that rumor has been persistent, but we have always required a portfolio, we always will, and in fact, that's part of our membership in an organization called National Portfolio Day, and so we can't get rid of a portfolio if we wanted to, which we don't, so yes. All right, what concerns or challenges have you heard directly from students that you are trying to address? Another great question. So, a few things that we have been working on, some of which we have accomplished, and others where there's still a lot more room to go. Just off the top of my head, we heard from students a lot about wanting to make sure that preferred names showed up in all the right places and not necessarily legal names. So that was easier to do with some of our systems than others, and we have finally finished that long process of making sure that that is sort of taking place everywhere. So, for example, in our learning management system, Moodle is called, thank you, Go Studio, sorry. Within Go Studio, it just got fixed where now your preferred name shows up on the class roster in class, and your legal name doesn't show up in sort of parentheticals. So that has been something that's come from student input. Similarly, making sure that we have unisex or multi-gender or so single stall restrooms in all of our buildings. So that has been completed. Speaking of restrooms, making sure that we have menstrual products free in all restrooms, regardless of what the sign is on the outside of the door. And so that is now the case. Beyond that, we have heard from students about some of the challenges of the schedule of when assignments are due for classes. So, for example, it can be really challenging when you have nothing due for 4 weeks, and all of a sudden all your classes have something due in the same week. So how can we work with faculty to the best of our ability? It's never going to be perfect, but to get faculty to kind of talk to each other and maybe try to stagger some of those assignments a little bit more. That's one where we haven't solved that yet, but that's sort of a conversation that's in progress that's come up from students. There are more for sure, but those are a few. And again, when I get through these questions, then come back to that one if there are other things that you've heard of student concerns that you feel like aren't being addressed yet. Okay, what are your thoughts on the adjunct to full-time teaching ratio? Are you planning on hiring more full-time professors in each major or just the ones previously listed? So my thoughts are that our adjunct to full-time teaching ratio is pretty typical for our peer institutions, for our design colleges, but it is also, that's not to say that therefore it's perfect the way it is, but we have been hiring new full-time faculty every year since I've been here. We've been hiring 4 to 8 new full-time faculty per year, and we are intending to continue to do that. Sometimes, unfortunately, those new faculty have been replacing faculty who have retired, so it's not always that every single one of those new faculty is additive, but we do our best to make them additive. And we are not just hiring in those areas previously listed, those are just the ones that are at the top of the list that are happening, those searches that are happening right now. We also hire, sometimes we hire visiting faculty by appointment that maybe happen on a more sort of moment-by-moment level and aren't necessarily searched for in the same process. But we also are looking at all the majors every year to determine what is that ratio of full-time to part-time faculty in that major and where do we need to hire. So my thoughts are that we can do better to have more full-time faculty, and yes, we are planning on hiring across multiple disciplines. How can we increase graduation rates? This is a huge challenge for us. So our graduation rates, again, are pretty typical for our schools of our size and schools, art design colleges. So they are not, they're not out of line with our peers, but we are putting a lot of focus on improving retention, improving ongoing persistence, and ultimately improving graduation rates. So how can we do that work? I think part of it comes down to make better understanding first what are the barriers to graduation. And that's a major study we're doing right now. So we are working with an outside organization, actually, a consulting group called Hanover Group, and doing a major study of our data, sort of last 5 years of data, on thinking about retention. So again, the first step to graduation is retention. So doing a major retention study, and once we have that information, we'll be able to better understand what are the predictors of graduation or non-graduation. We know what some of those are just from anecdotally, from common sense, from getting a sense of that. But to really have that deep dive into our data is really important to make sure that we're not making assumptions about that. So we have just completed a major study of best practices around improving retention across colleges and universities. So looking at that and what can we implement here at CCAD. I think that there are a few key things. One is making sure that students are on track from the beginning. One of the challenges to graduation is, once you kind of get off track, if you are not progressing, you're not succeeding in your classes, or you're changing your major really late in the game, then you get behind, and it can be frustrating and it can be hard to graduate. So doing our best to make sure that students have the support, the advising, the counseling that they need to kind of stay on track and stay successful in their courses. We also know, of course, that finances are a big issue with retention and graduation. So we are working on growing our resources on the financial aid side to make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide both kind of financial literacy for our students and families, so that we are giving all the information we have about what these, what does it mean to take out these loans, what is, how are you going to make sure you have what you need to pay them back, looking at ways to think about sort of new types of scholarships that will help people finish. So that's all kind of in progress right now. Why aren't there any painting classes outside the fine arts major? Have classes changed drastically over the years? Good questions. I wish Julie hadn't stepped out of the room, our provost and former dean of studio arts. So students can take painting classes within fine arts, so it doesn't, just because it's not in your major doesn't mean you can't take it. And so I would encourage everyone to use the electives they have, and if they're feeling like they don't have enough electives, to talk to their advisor about how they can build more in to be able to take the painting classes that are offered, and have classes changed drastically over the years. I'm not sure what that means, so maybe let's come back to that one and someone can speak up. But I mean, in many ways they have. Things always continue to evolve and change as new technologies come on board, as more contemporary teaching practices, but at the same time, we also offer a lot of the sort of same core classes that we have offered for many, many years, but we can come back to that. Would love for CCAD to challenge students to get off campus and explore Columbus more. Thoughts on how this can happen? I totally agree. I think that would be fantastic. I feel like one of the big assets that we have here at CCAD is Columbus. And that one of the things that is going to be incredibly critical for all creatives to do when they graduate out there in the workforce, again, regardless of whether you're fine arts or design, is to make connections. And whether or not you decide to stay in Columbus, doing so while you're a student here in Columbus gives you that practice and that opportunity. So how can we help this happen more? I think part of it is building it more into courses, so taking more field trips through the curriculum out into the city. I think part of it is about our student organizations. So how can our student organizations organize more sort of group trips out to what's going on? I think we can maybe do more to help you know what's going on. So how are we communicating with students, and can we use those channels to tell you more about opportunities out in the city? And part of it is just a, this is going to seem like a, I don't know, hard thing to achieve, but part of it is just sort of the culture of an institution, right? So how do we gradually grow and change the culture so that there's just an expectation amongst students that part of your job as a student here is to be out in the city, experiencing the world of art and design. And that regardless of whether or not it happens in classes, this is what you should all be choosing to do, is to go out and do that. And that's about that sort of positive peer pressure, right? That if your friends are all doing it, then you're gonna go along with them. So how do we start sort of evolving the culture so that that's just sort of a natural part of what it means to be a CCAD student? So I don't have the exact answer to that, but I think that's something that I would love to work on together with you all. The acceptance rate is high at CCAD. Should portfolio standards be more stringent? So part of this is a challenge with data. So when we offer our acceptance rate, it's the number of students who are accepted out of those who have 100% completed their application. And we just had this conversation actually where there is not a perfect compliance with that definition of acceptance rate amongst peer institutions. So there are some other art design colleges who may say, well, this is how many students we accept out of anyone who started an application. And therefore that number looks much lower, but it's not actually a much more selective school. It just means that they're doing the math differently. So one of the things is that at a place like CCAD, many students are sort of counseled out of completing an application before it's actually done. So many of our students come and share their portfolio with us, either through a National Portfolio Day visit, an on-campus tour, and many of those students, prospective students, may be told, you're not quite ready yet, you need to work on this, you need to do that, and so they don't end up completing their application, and therefore, even though they were, in some ways not selected by us, they don't count as a, person that we didn't choose, right? They weren't denied admission officially because they were sort of counseled out of completing their application. So, so I think I wouldn't worry too much about the sort of published acceptance rate as a measure of quality of who our students are. We continue to strengthen our portfolio requirements, our GPA requirements, because at the end of the day, we actually find that high school GPA is a better predictor of success, even in an art and design college, than portfolio. And part of that is because your high school GPA, maybe you weren't great at English or math or science, and maybe that's why you ended up in the arts, but at the end of the day, a lot of what your high school GPA tells you is, did you have the grit, did you have the perseverance to show up and do the work, And that is so incredibly important to your success at CCAD, as you all know, right? A lot of it is about showing up and doing the work. And so we look at all of those factors when we are looking at acceptance. How do you feel about the rate of students unable to find jobs in their fields after graduating from CCAD? I think I don't, so I don't have that that number is not a sort of a number that's there that I can say, oh, it's X% here versus, one of our competitor institutions, and therefore it's low or problematic. But I think the essence of the question around are enough of our young alumni finding jobs in the fields that they are looking for work in, I think that's something that we can always do better with, but I think that many of our alumni are getting jobs out there in their fields. I think that it also depends on what kind of work they're looking for and where they're willing to go. So, are they looking for a job, specifically here in Columbus or specifically in LA or New York? Are they willing to sort of travel to other markets? And I think that one of the things that we need to continue to work on, I guess two things I would say. One is, how do we make sure that we are capturing all of this data and sharing it appropriately? So we do participate in national surveys every year. One is called the Outcome Survey, where every year alumni who are kind of 1 year out from graduation are asked to fill out the survey about what they're doing, what their jobs are. But there are other opportunities for us to sort of gather all that information and make sure that we have everything we can to share it. And then beyond the just sort of better understanding that number is how can we continue to improve that. So we are making efforts to grow our Career Services Center, for example. That's an area where I think we've got some great staff there, but it's a very small team. So how can we continue to put more resources there so that the Career Services team can better help students find jobs, get those internships that lead to jobs, and also how do we continue to build on our business and entrepreneurship and professional practice education that is sort of throughout our major courses so that students are graduating feeling as prepared as possible to enter whatever sector of the creative workforce they're looking to enter. Who regulates the temperature in Kinney Hall? The temperature often fluctuates and is often distracting. I hear you, and I apologize for that. It is a challenge. That building is especially challenged when it comes to that. And who regulates the temperature? We have a facilities team, and they're working hard on that. We had an especially challenging moment when we were closed down for a long weekend, and it was really cold, and a lot of things got kind of messed up with the temperature. But I will make sure that our facilities folks know that this is a concern. I think they already do, but make sure that they are regularly coming in to kind of assess the temperature in Kinney and do our best to keep it, within a reasonable realm. Lab hours during Thanksgiving break were totally inaccurate on my CCAD. Shouldn't we prioritize communicating correct information to students and keeping these resources up to date? Yes, we should. And I don't know why they were inaccurate, but we will make sure that they're not next time around. I heard that after the fact that there was some of the lab hours were correct and some were not on my CCAD, so we will do better next time and make sure that that doesn't happen again. CCAD's mascot is an owl. Can we create something that fits the school community better? This will increase school pride. Yeah, so students chose the owl as the mascot. So there was a process about 3 years ago now where students, some of you may recall, students were asked for submissions on potential mascots, and then the entire student body got to vote, and the owl won. Totally fine with me to look at that again. So that's something that we want to kind of bring back to the students. So that's maybe a conversation that I will make sure that our student government representatives who are in the room are hearing, and we can bring back to one of our conversations with them about how we might want to proceed with thinking about and rethinking about our mascot. Okay, why aren't there as many My CCAD emails? I loved getting a bunch last year, but they've tapered off. I don't know that they've tapered off. We do a My CCAD email every 2 weeks, and it's always been that way since we had My CCAD emails. Maybe you were getting other emails from CCAD, sort of in between the official My CCAD emails, and maybe those have tapered off some, I'm not totally sure. I am, have to say, super surprised to see something on here saying I want more email. Totally happy to comply with that. I'll send you emails all day long, because that's what I do all day, is write a lot of emails. But I would be curious to know if that is a common sentiment. In fact, we did, I mentioned earlier that we partner sometimes with this outside consulting group called Hanover Group, and they help us just with some kind of big data research. And one of the, we were just discussing kind of what future projects we may be doing with them. And one of the questions that came up is student communication. So, how best can we communicate with students and make sure you have everything you need? And it is really challenging. You all change how you want to be communicated with, on a daily basis, which is great, and that's your prerogative. But you can imagine it's hard from an institutional standpoint to continue to figure out sort of what are you going to see most? Is it the emails? Is it posters in the elevator? Is it what we put on social media? And so I would love to continue the conversation, and we may engage in a more formal kind of survey of students that we'll send to you on all of those channels, so you get it, to hear from you about how you want to be communicated with. Can there be better communication between school and students on safety and health issues that happen on campus? Yes and no. So this actually, one of the things that I had on my list to kind of talk about if it didn't come up, is I know that sometimes people may wonder, I feel like this thing happened that I heard about in the rumor mill, and why hasn't CCD addressed this? And there are times when we can't address things because there are legal privacy issues. So for example, you may have heard about an incident in a class, or you may have heard about something else on campus, and you're wondering like, well, why hasn't CCD kept me up to date on what's going on with the situation? And often it's because we have a lot of legal issues that we're dealing with. There are federal laws like Title IX that are about issues around sexual harassment and gender discrimination. There are similar rules about in the workforce, Title VII, which is about sort of harassment in the workplace. There are issues around FERPA, the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, that protect your rights as a student and protect us from sharing your educational record with others, including your parents, and the list goes on of sort of the many regulations. So we do our best to share with you what we can, but we can't always share everything with you. And we can't necessarily, name names about who's doing what and, where they're at in their various processes. One of the things I think that we can do a little bit better with, and I've already started having conversations with Athena about this, is better inform you about what those processes are, right? So independent from a particular case, but if you made, or not you, because but if you heard that somebody made a Title IX complaint, what does that look like? What's the pipeline of process that goes through? So that information is in the student handbook, but I think we can do a better job of creating some, kind of visual, maps that kind of give you a sense of here's what this process is like. So here's why you may have heard something and then you don't hear anything for weeks or for whatever, right? So we're going to work on that. And things that we do want you to know about, we do try to do our best to communicate to you in a timely manner. But again, if there are specific things that you feel like you're not hearing about, let us know, and we can try to figure that out more. How can more inspiration art be added to campus? Maybe creating opportunities for student alumni art, or just adding color to campus. The campus sometimes feels gray and concrete. Totally agree with you. So we actually have, through our marketing and communications team, with the student agency, so with a lot of student input, we've been working on an entire new system for environmental branding, and that environmental branding includes really basic things like making sure all the rooms are numbered in maybe the same font and in the same style and in the same manner, but also really big things like how can we have more spot art and moments of delight and inspiration where we're filling the campus with more color, with more student work, with more alumni work. So we are working on that. We are working on that with our sort of in-house team, and within, of course, limited resources. So it's going to be unfolding over a while. It's not going to all be sort of magically done at once. But we're working on it. And what I would love to hear from you all is, are there specific spots where you would love to see some of this? For example, speaking of Kinney Hall, I was walking around last week in Kinney Hall and walked down the back staircase, and I even took a couple photos that I was going to share with our marketing team, because the back staircase has these beautiful, like, nice white walls, and there's nothing on them. And I thought, this is a great opportunity for, you know, some great murals and just other things. And I know it's the back staircase, but it's a cool spot that a lot of students are using, and it's a, you know, great blank canvas. So thinking about things like that, and please add to our list. All right, encourage portfolio reviews from professionals at the sophomore and junior level for reality check for improvement gap fix before senior year. Yes, yeah, so we do SPA, the sophomore progress assessment. We have you know, sort of final crits in all of our major courses, and I think that it would be great if those kind of significant moments of assessment and critique included outside professionals. So again, we'll work more to make sure that that happens. As I said, this slide deck will be saved and it will come back with me. So I'll share this with Julie Taggart, our provost, to make sure she knows that that's a desire, but I agree with you. Are there any ideas for bettering the resources and environment of the film and video program, similar to animation? Great question. We did a little bit of work up there last summer to update and just sort of fix up a lot of the labs that were up there in that area, but it didn't necessarily get into the studios of the film and video area, so I think it's definitely a possibility. And again, I know that your chair would love to hear more from you about, are there specific things that you're looking for that you feel like are missing in that area, so that she can then advocate for those through the process that we have every year around budgeting and capital projects, et cetera. How will CCAD address the tensions between students and security police on campus? I guess I want to know more about, are there specific tensions? I get that there are tensions between students and police on a sort of large scale, but are there specific incidents or concerns that students are having on campus, on CCAD's campus? I'd love to know more about what those are, so we can make sure that we're addressing those specifically. I would like our CCAD safety and security team are a really great group of people who should be here to help you feel safe, should be here to help you feel at home, to help care for you and make sure that this is a place where you're comfortable. And if there are challenges there, again, I'd love to know what those specifics are. In terms of the sort of Columbus police, I would like to, rarely have the Columbus police on our campus, because I would like this to be a safe place where they don't need to be, and that we have a great safety and security team on campus who are helping us sort of maintain that safety. But again, if that's not happening, or if there are specific incidents, let's come back to those, because I want to know more about them. Will future students ever have a fall break again? The real answer is I don't know. We tried fall break twice. We never had a fall break before. We had, none of our peer art and design colleges have a fall break. Some of the liberal arts colleges have a fall break. And so we decided that this might be a good idea. We tried it twice, and each time had different problems, because we tried it one way, and that wasn't really working. We tried it another way, that had problems. And so we did away with it, and instead created just a sort of one kind of study and studio day. And might we bring it back again? Maybe, but I think we really need to understand what are our goals, because I think part of it is that people have different goals. For some people, they want it as a chance to get away, so to truly take a few days off and go hang out with family, go hang out with friends, and have a true break. For others, they want it to be a time to catch up on their studio work and on their their studies. It might seem easy to say well, sure, can't can it be both? But then you think about, well, what do people need to have that time to work in the studio? They need studios to be open. Who are our lab monitors? They're often students, but if those students are the ones who want to take a break and go home, so how do we manage all of that? Can be a challenge. So I think, I'm not saying no, it'll never happen, but I think we need to really think through, what's the goal of it? What do we want to have? What do we want to accomplish with it before we just restart it? What are your thoughts on uniforms? Wow, interesting. Less time on picking out what to wear. My thoughts are you will have a student revolt, but less time on picking out what to wear and more time creating art. What are your thoughts on uniforms? This is fascinating. No one's ever asked me my thoughts on uniforms before. I don't feel like uniforms are likely to come to a school like CCAD, but I do know that there are many creatives in the world who, wear their uniform, right? Their, sort of black turtleneck and black pants every day because they don't want to spend their time. They don't want to waste their creative energy thinking about their outfit. They want to pour it all into their work. I guess what I would say is that I would encourage you, as an individual who may be interested in having uniforms, to come up with your own uniform and wear your own uniform every day. I don't think anyone here is going to judge you for that. I think we've got people who show up in everything. One of the great things that I like about sitting in my office in Kanzani is I have a wonderful view. I've got a great office, and I get to look out on the quad every day. And every now and then I'm in a meeting, and I pause and I say, "Oh my God, check out that outfit," because you guys have great outfits, and I love it. So I would hate to miss out on that. All right, why aren't more resources that are required for classes included in tuition when cost of tuition has increased? So I think part of it is trying to kind of take apart who needs what. So there aren't as many resources as you would think that are common to sort of all the students. So a lot of students have very individualized needs in terms of their classes, and so it's hard to kind of have one package. I've heard a number of complaints about the freshman kit, for example, that does get kind of wrapped into your sort of cost of attendance in the first year, but that in fact a lot of the stuff in there people aren't using, but it's not all the same stuff, right? So it's not like, oh, we can just get rid of that one thing, the freshman kit, because no one needs it. But in fact, it's sort of like, well, this person used all of this, but none of that, and then the other person's the opposite. So trying to do that on a college-wide scale can be a challenge. But again, I'd love to know more specifics about, are there things that you specifically do feel like are common to everybody and that you want built in? Okay, I'm trying to get through the bottom of the list here. We're getting close. And then we can open it up to more questions. All right, I'm going to have to talk fast. What time is it?
12:02.
12:02. Oh, man. Okay, all right. I'm going to go really fast. All right. Why are the full-time professors in advertising, graphic design and possibly other majors all old white men who have been out of their field for a while? So I think that this maybe comes back to the previous question around hiring of full-time faculty. So we are doing our best to continue to hire more full-time faculty into all of our majors. And it is a particular emphasis of mine to make sure that those efforts around hiring are closely tied to diversity and to bringing more faculty of color into CCAD. This is an area where, again, I know we are not doing that well. Not to make excuses, but a lot of our design colleges aren't doing that well. And so we have a lot of work to do. It's something that I spent a lot of time doing at my previous institution before coming to CCAD and helped move California College of the Arts to be the art and design college with the most faculty of color. So it's something I have some proven experience doing, and I'm working hard at trying to start making that happen here at CCAD. So I know it's hard when you're a student and you're only here for a few years, but it is a big challenge, and we're working on it. The Fine Arts Department does not have any professors of color. Okay, yeah, same issue. So again, this is a huge issue for all of us. Our student body is far more diverse than our faculty body, and we're working on changing that. We participate in addition to just all the full-time searches, we participate in a program within our design colleges that's specifically a teaching fellowship for new graduates from MFA programs who are from diverse backgrounds. And we hire those folks, and they hire our new graduates so we can help grow the art and design college faculty populace across the nation. Why do we have to declare a major? Is there some way we can take X studio classes and X liberal arts classes and graduate with a general arts degree and BFA? Great question. One of the things that actually came up in our strategic planning session on Saturday. This is something that we're always looking to explore, are how are different ways that we can help students do a wide variety of things. We could be a school without majors. It takes a lot of work to go through that process to change sort of how we're accredited, but it's a possibility and something we can definitely talk more about. Lab hours for returning students, not only breaks in the semester, but during summer as well. Okay, so just generally speaking, can we have more lab hours for continuing students even when they're on breaks? Something that we're looking at, again, a challenge given sort of the fact that we have other students who are often the lab monitors, et cetera, but something to work on. Can you publish written answers to all of these questions in an email after this meeting? Whew, maybe. We are video recording this, and that will be sent out to everybody. Can I type out all the answers? Not sure, but I can work on it. The senior graduation form says that commencement will take place in the Ohio Theater. Oh, that is not accurate. Yes. Can this please be changed? Yes, it can. Commencement is at Mershon, as it has been the last few years. Yep, we will make sure that's fixed. Is there any way you can get a crosswalk light in the crosswalk in front of DSB? There are trees blocking the yield signs. Yes. So we do have that crosswalk that is kind of right behind Kanzani over to DSB. I don't know, but I'll share this with our facilities folks. Those are city projects, but we can share that with the city for sure. I think the new streetscapes have done a lot for us, but they have not solved all of our traffic problems by any means. Can we have more visibility surrounding lab fees and what they're used for? I know that there have been some changes around this, but I'm not totally sure what those are. Yes, I mean, we have shared some of that in sort of, I think, previous emails from IT about what fees go toward, but I'll bring that back to them and make sure that that is as transparent as it can be. Are you a fan of WWE? Not necessarily. I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't think much about it. I think when I was thinking AMA, I was really thinking MMA, the mixed martial arts or whatever. That was the connection to me. But not that I'm a big fan of that either. I don't know. I can't say I spent a lot of time watching a lot of WWE, though I could probably name a number of wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Andre the Giant. I'm a child of the 80s, so you can't miss out on all those. I know we are over time, and I know many of you have class at 12:15, but I will stick around for a little while longer, so if anyone wants to follow up with more questions or more answers to some of my questions back to you, I would love to hear it, but I also don't want to keep you all. I would love, though, to get a quick selfie, so as you're getting up, maybe like crowd in the center, and I even got my selfie stick out, so I can take a photo with you all. But I really appreciate you coming, and thanks for so many questions. This is the first time we did this, and I was a little nervous. Are they going to have anything to ask? And you had a ton of great questions, so I really appreciate it. Thanks.